Overwatch, there's a couple different things you can do once you start to lose a fight. The most obvious thing you can do is decide, hey, it's a rout. Maybe they're up by 2, 3 people. Maybe they're just totally wiping us. And you can go ahead and decide we're going to do a full retreat. We're mostly going to see this happen here, where the Spitfire are going to decide this is a 3v2. We don't have the tools to win it. Now it's going to get worse than a 3v2. And Hadi is just going to full on charge out. The reason this is done is to preserve ult charge. Hadi doesn't feed the extra 500-600 HP of ult charge that doesn't then get healed, so his team isn't as far behind and it doesn't put them on the back foot as much for the next fight. The problem with this is you surrender a lot of space. That's not fantastic. You, of course, immediately go, hey, they get to push the cart until my respawns are back. That's not fantastic, but it's generally necessary once you get behind by 2 people, 3 people, maybe 3, 4 people, whatever the case may be there. But there are other options on how to take a fight. We can look at this one here, and we're going to see what we're mostly going to be talking about in this video, which is the defensive concave. We saw a couple things just happened here. So for those of you that were paying attention, we sort of had our team grouped up here as the London Spitfire, and then some meaningful cooldowns got forced. We saw Backbone used Ice Block. That's a pretty big cooldown. We saw Backbone used Ice Wall. That's a pretty big cooldown. And we didn't get good value out of that Ice Wall. We didn't really force the opponents to react with a bunch of their own cooldowns, like amp speed, like a lamp, or something big like that, and the opponents got value out of their Annonade. They were able to splash a couple people with purple here. So this created an advantage for the Florida Mayhem. And at first, we see London Spitfire started to retreat, but they quickly righted themselves and went, no, this is a minor disadvantage that we're at. We instead want to retreat into a defensive concave, with Sparker working his way to the left, some of the other teammates working their way to the right over here, and Landon working his way towards the back, which creates in the middle here, if the opponents want to aggress into it to push Landon or to push Spark or to push anyone, it would put them in a kill box that has really just been manufactured by this retreat, but this retreat into multiple different directions. But does this work for other things? Is this only something you do when the opponents have a minor cooldown advantage from, hey, maybe 2 or 3 cooldowns swinging in their direction? Does it work on bigger things like an ultimate? Well, yes, of course it does. Here we see Checkmate gets the nano, and what we're actually going to see in this nano, as Checkmate is going in, we see Landon the Ana right here, and then we're going to pretty quickly see that the other players on Spitfire fanned out. We've got Cassidy over here, we've got May and Lucio over here, and then we have our Ana right behind where our Genji is now. So that works pretty well, where again, we've created this kill box. So even this nano Genji who's aggressing into the enemy team with this nano support is going to be somewhat handled by this defensive kill box created by the team splitting as pressure comes in here. For those of you that have seen some of my previous work, you'll also recognize that this is a plus fight for London Spitfire that they've created because they have themselves a 4v2, 4v1, however you want to think about it, and this Nano Genji does eventually get handled. That worked out. Definitely got some value, but that does work out pretty well for us. So hey, that's pretty cool. So then we can go ahead and talk this through in another way. You've really got a list of options when you're losing a fight. You've got the full route, which is just the, hey, let's go ahead and hard retreat option. That can make sense if you go down 3 people, maybe 2 people, depending on Overwatch 1, Overwatch 2. And you're just massively behind, or the opponents have a huge number of ults that they're throwing at you, sure, we can just retreat. The problem is that gives up a lot of map control. Another option, let's say your Reinhardt gets overwhelmed in this example, you could decide that what you actually want to do is you almost want to int into the other team. You want to look for the trade back. And what that is going to do is that is going to be a situation where the opponents probably used a lot of resources to aggress in and take your Reinhardt in this example. They might have used their Monkey Bubble, their Storm Arrow, their Annonade, their Lucio Speed, maybe even their Recall. Okay, great. Now, since we're in a situation where it's a 4v5 and they used a bunch of resources resources to take out our fifth person. We actually want to invest our resources. We want to fight while everyone is empty, even if we're empty on resources as well, because the longer that time goes, the more resources relative to us that they're going to get back, simply because they have a fifth person that is generating their cooldowns, that's cooldown is ticking back, that is getting healed up by auras or by direct healing that we don't. So the longer the fight goes on in some ways, if we can't create some other advantage, the more it ticks against us. So that would be the argument for the trade back. And you're going to see a lot of trade backing in Overwatch 2, at least for now. But we have another example. And we already talked through this example in some of the video that we saw here. But the other thing that you can do is you can choose to slow it down. Well, why would you slow it down? Don't they gain resources back faster than you from having that extra person on the board? Well, that can be the case. But what if we backed up our BAP over here, sent our Junkrat up here, pulled our Cassidy back over to here, and then put our Lucio where we need to? He's pretty fast. He can go where he needs to. Well, BAP is the one that the other team is probably the most hungry for. If they can eliminate the BAP, the Ana, the Zen, that's going to take a lot of power off the board. That's pretty darn valuable. They'd sure like to do that. But if the Monkey pushes in here, if the backline pushes through here, if any of this happens, for those of you who know some Overwatch, this is a kill box that we've just created. And if the opponents have to pass through the kill box to get to our BAP, to get to the person that they most want to eliminate, that's going to work pretty well for us. We get to fire in from some pretty extreme angles. That's pretty cool. And if they go, hey, no, I'm instead going to push this box, I'm going to push it on this junk over here, well, that's fine. We're still going to get shot in the back by the Cassidy. BAP may pop up here, shoot the Winston in the side. That's not fantastic either. Now, the correct move from the red team's perspective is from the outside to try to force down this Junkrat or try to force back this Cassidy, but the blue team can continue to adjust to this. And even if it's a thing where, hey, they put pressure on this Cassidy and this Cassidy has to back off, that still slows things down, gives our Reinhardt more time to respawn, work his way back, works more time off the clock in this objective-based game, and is in the team's favor that was down a person, where the other team has to go to extra steps to go ahead and cleanly win the fight there. So here's an example. If they tried to push this Cassidy, this team is going to rotate. They start to rotate to push this Cassidy. This Cassidy falls back, and we can actually reform our Concave, where this team continues to push in here, and then they've got a situation where, wait a second, we just reformed our Concave. It's not always this clean, but you can continue to readjust and really not let this team have a fantastic or easy time with their cleanup there. So this is really what I wanted to cover here. Obviously, the advantage as the blue team here of going, hey, we've correctly protected our backliner like this. We recognize that our support wants to back off and our DPS potentially want to split. Maybe a tank wants to split in Overwatch 1, that sort of thing. We've created a situation where the back is protected by having to walk through the kill box that we keep resetting when we start to go down in a fight. And the sides, well, the BAP or the Zen or the Ana or whatever can properly support that with good resources. It's going to be much harder to take down the Junkrat that can get some BAP heals, that can get the lamp, than it would be to take down the BAP if your Junkrat and Cassidy were both on the same side or were fighting somewhere else or weren't setting up this defensive concave here. This is absolutely something that you can incorporate into your solo ladder experience. You just need to recognize when fights are close enough that it makes more sense to go, hey, if I'm a DPS, I'm going to peel to the outside instead of just straight running back. Instead of just straight running towards the direction of my team's spawn, I'm going to peel out a little bit, and that's going to be my retreat. As long as the rest of my team doesn't just hard retreat, we're protecting each other by splitting like this. So that is useful. That is something you guys should definitely understand. Obviously, it works great for team play as well. You'll see it intentionally implemented in much stronger ways in team play, but you can get good value out of this in ladder play, and you should start working it in there. And again, don't forget about trade backs either. Just sort of take note and recognize when your team starts to go down one. Does it make more sense to go? Is your team trying to immediately push back in and swing hard? Or are you guys in a place where it makes more sense? Maybe they got an early pick in the poke phase to go into that defensive concave. If your opponents are pushing with an ult, a support ult, a dragon strike, a nano, something like that, that defensive concave, great friend, recommend you use it if you don't immediately see your team answering with their own ult to sort of equalize in that sense. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have, drop a like, consider subscribing for more thought-provoking Overwatch and Overwatch 2 content, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, Temporal out.